The execution and the outrage. Primus smiled cruelly as he shot the human diplomat in the chest, not knowing that murdering Chris Adams would be the biggest regret of his soon-to-be cut-short Iconian life. Chris slumped forward on the polished obsidian table, dark red blood pooling under his head. The Iconian High Counselor leaned back with a smug grin, assured of his species' superiority. He could already see the Iconian war fleet bombarding the defenseless human colonies, slaughtering millions. Little did they know the Earth Alliance had been holding back, and now these arrogant aliens had gone too far. They had no idea of the sleeping giant they had just awoken, no clue about the human military's true capabilities. The Iconians were about to find out what happens when you provoke humanity's wrath. They were about to learn that you should never, ever underestimate the humans. Chris Adams, the murdered diplomat, had been humanity's last olive branch, its final attempt at peace. The 32-year-old had traveled to the Iconian homeworld for a crucial summit meeting, a desperate bid to deter the increasingly aggressive aliens. For months, the Iconians had been threatening the human colony worlds near their territory, making outrageous demands. They insisted the colonies be abandoned, the land ceded to their empire. But the colonies were under the sacred protection of the Earth Alliance, and the humans would rather die than leave their homes. They would fight to the last man to defend their families. So that's what Chris had tried to convey at the summit, but the Iconians wouldn't listen. Primus, Chris's alien counterpart, had escorted him into the meeting with a whispered threat, boasting of the Iconian technological supremacy. Then the High Counselor had sneered at Chris's refusal to surrender the colonies, claiming that the mighty Iconian fleet would crush humanity like insects. Chris had stayed calm, giving them one last warning that they were underestimating humankind. They could have listened, but instead, enraged by his defiance, they executed him on the spot. Chris was dead, and now the Iconians would pay. They would face the unrestrained might of the human war machine. They would taste the fury of a species with nothing left to lose. The Iconians thought they were the apex predators of the galaxy, but they had never witnessed monsters like us. The news of Chris Adams' brutal murder sent shockwaves rippling through the Earth Alliance. Footage of the diplomat's execution played on every news channel and spread like wildfire across social media. The people were outraged, demanding justice and retribution against the alien scum who had so callously killed one of their own. President Jonathan Michaels knew he had to act fast. He called for an emergency press conference, his weathered face grim as he strode to the podium. The old soldier had seen his fair share of battles, but this was unlike anything he had faced before. An all-out war with a hostile alien species. He gripped the sides of the podium, his knuckles white as he addressed the nation. My fellow humans, today we mourn the loss of Chris Adams, a brave man who died serving his people. But more than that, we face a grave new threat. The Iconians have made it clear they intend to destroy us. They want our colonies, our resources, and our lives. But we will not let them have them. The president paused, letting his words sink in. What the Iconians didn't know is that Chris Adams was more than just a diplomat. He was a highly trained operative equipped with a special neural implant that transmitted everything he saw and heard back to Earth. We have recordings of the Iconians threatening Chris and then murdering him in cold blood. We also captured critical intel on their military capabilities and fleet movements. He straightened his shoulders, his voice hardening with resolve. I am therefore ordering the full mobilization of Earth's military forces. We are now at war with the Iconian Empire. We will avenge Chris Adams and protect our colonies at all costs. The Iconians think we're weak. They think we'll be easy prey. But they're about to find out how wrong they are. Humanity will prevail. The people cheered, rallying behind their leader as the machinery of war rumbled to life. Factories worked overtime to churn out ships, tanks, and weapons. Soldiers trained harder than ever before, preparing for the battles to come. Earth was ready to unleash the full might of its advanced war machine on the Iconian homeworld. Primus strutted into the High Counselor's chamber, still riding high off executing the pathetic human. "I put that Terran dog down," he boasted. Did you see the look on his face? The High Counselor grinned, baring his sharp teeth. "You've done well, Primus. We'll make an example of the humans. Teach the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. I'm promoting you to Fleet Commander. You will lead the invasion of the human colonies. Wipe them out, all of them." Primus saluted, his chest swelling with pride. "It will be my pleasure. The human colonies will burn. Their people will be slaves or corpses. Soon, the Iconian flag will fly over every world." The first clash. As the mighty Iconian armada approached the first human colony, Primus was already savoring his impending triumph. The primitive apes would be no match for Iconian warships. This would be quick and easy. But suddenly, alarms blared across the fleet as strange contacts appeared on their sensors. Human ships, dozens of them, had appeared out of nowhere around the colony. The Terran craft seemed to shimmer into existence as their cloaks disengaged. Primus gaped in disbelief. How could the humans have such advanced stealth technology? They weren't supposed to be this capable. Cold fear crept down his spine as the Earth fleet moved to engage. The Iconians had gravely underestimated their enemy, and now they would pay the price. The Earth Alliance warships materialized around the human colony, their advanced cloaking technology disengaging to reveal a formidable fleet. The human vessels bristled with cutting-edge weaponry, the likes of which the Iconians had never seen. Primus's eyes widened in shock as the first volley of energy beams lanced out from the Earth ships, slicing through the Iconian shields like they were made of paper. The Iconian ships shuddered under the onslaught, their hulls buckling and fracturing as the relentless barrage continued. Explosions blossomed across the Iconian fleet, the once proud warships reduced to shattered husks in mere moments. Alarms blared on the bridge of Primus's ship as damage reports flooded in, painting a grim picture of the fleet's deteriorating state. Primus slammed his fist on the console, his earlier confidence evaporating. "All ships, fall back. Regroup at the designated coordinates." He turned to his tactical officer, his voice tight with barely restrained anger. "Analyze their weapons and find me a way to counter them. The humans shouldn't have this kind of technology." As the battered Iconian fleet limped away from the colony, a small, sleek vessel detached from the Earth Alliance formation. The Spectre infiltration team, led by Captain Jason Reynolds, deftly maneuvered their ship towards the Iconian command vessel. Their approach was marked by the advanced stealth systems. Jason's jaw clenched as he thought of Chris, his friend and comrade, murdered in cold blood by the Iconians. The Spectres had a mission: capture high-value targets, gather intel, and make the Iconians pay for what they'd done. The infiltration ship docked with the Iconian command vessel, and the Spectres sprang into action. Their stealth suits shimmered, rendering them nearly invisible as they moved through the corridors like ghosts. Iconian soldiers fell before they even knew they were under attack, the Spectres' weapons cutting through their armor with ease. Jason led his team towards the ship's data core, their objective clear. They needed the information stored within to win this war. The Spectres breached the core's defenses, and the team's tech expert went to work, her fingers flying over the console as she downloaded the precious data. Back on Earth, President Michaels faced a wall of screens, each displaying the leader of a different galactic power. He laid out the evidence of the Iconian aggression, the recordings from Chris's implant damning in their clarity. The other leaders listened, their expressions shifting from skepticism to anger as the extent of the Iconian threat became clear. One by one, they pledged their support to the Earth Alliance. They had all suffered under the Iconians' bullying and threats, and now, with humanity leading the charge, they saw a chance to strike back. A coalition formed, united in their determination to bring the Iconians to heel. The infiltration. On the Iconian command ship, Jason and his team fought their way towards the bridge, the ship's elite guards falling before the Spectre's onslaught. As they breached the bridge, Jason locked eyes with Primus. The Iconian commander's face twisted with hate. The two warriors clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, their armor sparking as they traded blows. Primus sneered, his words dripping with venom. "Your friend Chris died like a coward, begging for his life. We were always going to invade your pathetic species. His death was just the beginning." Jason's vision turned red, rage surging through his veins. He launched himself at Primus, his enhanced strength overpowering the Iconian. His hands closed around Primus's throat, the alien's eyes bulging as he gasped for air. But even through his anger, Jason knew Primus was more valuable alive. With a growl, he released his grip, slamming the Iconian. The rebellion within. Jason secured the restraints around Primus's wrists, the Iconian commander glaring at him with pure hatred. The Spectre leader ignored the look, tapping his comm unit. "Command, this is Reynolds. Primus is in custody, and the bridge is secure. I repeat, we have control of the Iconian command ship." There was a crackle of static before a voice responded. "Excellent work, Captain. We'll inform the fleet immediately. Secure any valuable intel and prepare for extraction." Jason acknowledged the order, then turned to his team. "You heard them. Sweep the ship, gather anything useful, and let's get the hell out of here." As the Spectres went to work, the Earth Alliance fleet received word of their success. Admiral Norisato, commanding from the bridge of her flagship, smiled grimly. "All ships, press the attack. The Iconian fleet is in disarray. Let's show them what happens when they mess with humanity." The Coalition fleet surged forward, the Iconian ships faltering without their leadership. Earth Alliance vessels and those of their allies tore into the enemy ranks, their advanced weapons cutting swaths of destruction. The Iconians, once so arrogant, fled before the onslaught. The battle raged on, the Coalition pushing the Iconians back to their home world. But as they approached the planet, they were met with a daunting sight. A massive planetary shield encased the globe, shimmering with energy. Orbital weapon platforms bristled with cannon emplacements, ready to repel any attack. Admiral Seto frowned, studying the readouts. A frontal assault would be costly. Even with their advanced technology, they needed another way. She opened a channel to the Spectre team who had just returned from the Iconian command ship. "Captain Reynolds, we have a situation. The Iconian homeworld is heavily defended. We need to neutralize those defenses, but an orbital bombardment would result in heavy casualties. I'm open to suggestions." Jason thought for a moment, then replied, "Admiral, the data we pulled from the command ship might have something. Give us a moment to analyze it." The Spectres pored over the stolen intel, looking for any weakness in the Iconian defenses. Finally, their tech expert spoke up. "I got something. There's a vulnerability in the shield's power grid, a critical junction deep beneath the planet's surface. If we could get a team in there to sabotage it, the shield would collapse." Jason nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "Admiral, we found a way. We'll need a team of engineers and some Spectre support. If we can infiltrate this power facility and disable the grid, the shield will fall. Then the fleet can move in." Admiral Sato agreed, and preparations began. A crack team of Earth Alliance engineers was assembled, their skills honed by years of experience. The Spectres would accompany them, providing security and tactical support. The infiltration team covertly landed on the Iconian homeworld, slipping past sensor nets and patrols. They made their way to the entrance of the underground power facility, a heavily guarded structure of reinforced metal. The Spectres moved in first, their stealth suits rendering them nearly invisible. They silently dispatched the guards, clearing the way for the engineers. The team entered the facility, moving quickly towards the central power junction. But as they approached their target, alarms began to blare. A hidden security system had detected their presence, alerting the facility's defenders. The engineers worked frantically to sabotage the power grid while the Spectres took up defensive positions. A contingent of Iconian soldiers, led by a ruthless commander named Zeus, bore down on their position. Plasma bolts filled the air as the two sides clashed, the Spectres fighting with grim determination to buy the engineers time. Despite their advanced weapons and training, the Spectres were slowly being pushed back. Zeus and his soldiers were relentless, driven by a fanatical loyalty to the High Council. Just as it seemed the humans would be overwhelmed, a new group entered the fray. A band of Iconian rebels, armed and armored, attacked Zeus's flank. The rebel leader, a charismatic figure named Kylus, called out to the Spectres, "We're on your side. We want an end to this war, an end to the High Council's tyranny." With the rebels' help, the tide of battle turned. The Spectres and their newfound allies drove back Zeus's forces, giving the engineers the precious minutes they needed. With a final burst of sparks, the power junction overloaded and the planetary shield flickered and died. The final stand. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Sato watched as the shield collapsed. She opened a channel to the Iconian High Council, her voice filled with steely resolve. "Your defenses are gone, and your fleet is in ruins. Surrender now, or face the consequences." In the halls of the Iconian government, the High Council members argued and bickered, their unity shattered by the sudden turn of events. Some called for a final stand, but others, seeing the futility, pushed for surrender. In the end, faced with the prospect of annihilation, the High Council agreed to lay down their arms and negotiate a peace treaty. On the surface of the Iconian homeworld, Jason Reynolds and Kylus stood side by side, watching as the Earth Alliance ships landed, bringing diplomats and peacekeepers. The war was over, but the hard work of rebuilding and forging a lasting peace was just beginning. The two warriors, once enemies, now stood united in their hope for a better future. Earth Alliance soldiers secured key locations across the Iconian homeworld as the rebel forces worked to maintain order. Primus found himself dragged in chains before a hastily assembled war crimes tribunal. He glared defiantly at the judges, a mix of human and Iconian officials. The proceedings were swift but thorough, evidence piled up against Primus and the High Council. Recordings from Chris Adams' neural implant played, damning in their clarity. Primus's own boasts of the planned invasion sealed his fate. The tribunal delivered their verdict. Primus and the surviving High Council members were sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote penal colony, their powers stripped away forever. Kylus, the rebel leader, stepped forward to address the Iconian people. He spoke of a new era of peace and cooperation, of a government that would work for the benefit of all. The Iconians, weary of war and deception, rallied behind him. On Earth, a memorial service was held for Chris Adams. Dignitaries from across the galaxy came to pay their respects. President Michaels spoke of Chris's bravery and sacrifice, but it was Jason Reynolds, Chris's closest friend, who delivered the eulogy. Jason's voice shook as he stood at the podium. Chris believed in the power of understanding, in the strength of unity. He gave his life for these ideals. Let us honor him by striving to build a galaxy where such sacrifices are no longer necessary. As the service ended, a shocking revelation came to light. Iconian rebels, combing through the High Council's secret files, discovered the existence of an ancient AI called Nexus. This AI, a relic of a long-dead race, had been subtly guiding the Iconians for centuries, pushing them toward conquest. The news sent shockwaves through the Earth Alliance and the new Iconian government. The true enemy, it seemed, was still out there, hidden in the shadows. The threat looms. The Prion ships ripped through the darkness of space like a swarm of locusts, weapons thirsty for puny human blood. Korvac sneered at the primitive metal hulks hanging uselessly in the void ahead. Soon, Earth would be his slave planet. It was 2200 F7. A century had passed since Earth built its first warp drives and stumbled into a galaxy ruled by predators. The Priorians viewed humans as cattle, expendable pests to be crushed under a reptilian boot. Robert Reyes stood ramrod straight on the bridge of the UES Valiant, a heavy cruiser tasked with patrolling the fringes of the Sol system. At 35, The human naval officer had seen his share of battles against pirates and raiders, but this was different. An entire Prian battle fleet was bearing down on humanity's homeworld, hellbent on conquest and subjugation. The survival of the entire human race hinged on the actions Reyes and his crew took in the next few minutes. Success meant freedom. Failure meant chains. As the enemy warships grew larger on the view screen, Reyes narrowed his eyes. The Priorians thought Earth's fleet was a joke, a collection of rickety antiques. They had no idea what humans were truly capable of or the nasty surprise Earth had in store for them. Reyes smiled grimly as his finger hovered over the weapon's control. It was time to show these scaly bastards what primitive really meant. The battle begins. Korvac's eyes widened as he watched the battle unfold on the view screen. The human ships moved with a speed and agility that defied belief, easily evading the Prian weapons' fire. Their own energy beams sliced through Prian shields like they were made of paper, causing explosions to blossom across the hulls of his warships. Impossible, Korvac hissed, his scaly fists clenching. How can their primitive technology be so advanced? On the bridge of the Valiant, Reyes coordinated his fleet's movements with calm precision. Alpha Wing, execute feint maneuver Delta 5. Beta Wing, target the enemy's flanks with torpedoes spread Gamma 2. The human ships darted and weaved, their movements perfectly synchronized. Prian vessels erupted into flames as human weapons found their marks. Korvac slammed his fist on the console. All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship. I want that ship destroyed. A barrage of Prian energy beams converged on the Valiant, but the ship's advanced shields absorbed the impacts without buckling. The Valiant's point defense lasers swiveled and fired, intercepting incoming missiles with unerring accuracy. Reyes smiled as he watched the Prian assault fail. Their weapons can't touch us. Continue the attack. The Valiant's main cannon glowed with power before unleashing a devastating beam that speared straight through a Prian battleship, causing it to explode in a blinding flash. The Titan fleet arrives. As the battle raged on, it became increasingly clear that the Priorians were outmatched. Their ships were being torn apart by human weapons, while their own attacks proved ineffective against human defenses. A transmission from Earth's High Command appeared on the Valiant's view screen. Captain Reyes, reinforcements are en route. The ships you're fighting alongside are just the tip of the spear. We've been hiding our true strength from the galaxy, but now it's time to show the Priorians what humanity is really capable of. Reyes nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. Understood, Command. We'll hold the line until the cavalry arrives. On the Prian flagship, Korvac's eyes widened in shock as sensor readings showed a massive fleet of human warships dropping out of FTL on the edge of the battlefield. These ships were even larger and more heavily armed than the ones he was currently facing. Realizing that defeat was imminent, Korvac made a desperate gamble. All ships, charge the human lines. We'll take as many of them with us as we can. The remnants of the Prian fleet surged forward, weapons blazing in a final defiant assault. But the human ships stood their ground, their shields absorbing the onslaught as their own weapons continued to pick off Prian vessels one by one. The Prometheus leads the charge. As the Prian ships charged forward in a last desperate attack, the fabric of space itself seemed to tear open. A massive wormhole, its edges crackling with energy, yawned wide near the battle site. Korvac's eyes widened as he saw what emerged from its swirling depths. A fleet of gargantuan human warships, dwarfing both the Prian vessels and the human ships already engaged in battle. These behemoths were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloys and bristling with weapons that made the Valiant's armaments look like toys. "Sir, we're being hailed by the lead ship of the new fleet," the comms officer reported, his voice trembling with awe. They identify themselves as the UES Prometheus, flagship of Earth's Titan fleet. Reyes felt a surge of pride and relief as he watched the titanic human vessels wade into the fray, their weapons already spitting death at the Prian ships. He had heard whispers of the Titan fleet, but never dreamed he would see it in action. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Marcus Graves stood tall, his grizzled features set in a mask of determination. He had waited decades for this moment, to reveal the true might of humanity. To the galaxy, all ships engage the enemy, Graves commanded, his voice booming across the fleet's comms. Show them what happens when they dare threaten Earth. Korvac's last stand. The Titan fleet tore into the Priorians like wolves among sheep. Streams of searing energy and volleys of antimatter missiles ripped through the enemy ships, shredding their hulls and sending them spinning away in flames. The Prion weapons, so devastating against the Valiant and her escorts, splashed harmlessly against the Titan fleet's advanced shields. Korvac watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled by the human reinforcements. His grand plans for conquest lay in ruins, shattered by a foe he had so badly underestimated. "Helmsman, get us out of here," Korvac barked, desperation creeping into his voice. "We must retreat and regroup." But before the Prion flagship could flee, a targeted electromagnetic pulse from the Prometheus washed over the vessel, shorting out its systems and leaving it dead in space. "Admiral Graves, the enemy flagship is disabled," Rise reported over the comms, a grin spreading across his face. "I suggest we send over a boarding party to capture their commander." "Agreed, Captain Rise," Graves replied, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "Let's end this." The capture of Korvac, human boarding craft, filled with power-armored Marines wielding advanced weapons, streaked towards the crippled Prion flagship. Korvac rallied his bridge crew for a final stand. But the boarding action was short and brutal. The human Marines cut through the Prion defenses like a plasma torch through paper. Rise led the charge, his armor's augmented strength and speed, making him an unstoppable force. On the bridge, Korvac and his guards put up a fierce resistance, but they were no match for the human boarders. Rise crashed through the bridge doors, his armor shrugging off the guards' weapons fire, and engaged Korvac in hand-to-hand combat. The two leaders clashed in a whirlwind of blows, Korvac's reptilian strength pitted against Rise's power-augmented armor. But in the end, there could be only one victor. Rise smashed his armored fist into Korvac's jaw, sending the Prion commander crashing to the deck, unconscious. "Admiral Graves, this is Reyes," the human captain reported, standing over Korvac's prone form. "The Prion commander is in custody. I think it's time we had a little chat with our friend here about unconditional surrender." Humanity's rise. As the human fleet secured the battlefield and began mopping up the remaining Prion forces, it was clear that a new era had dawned for the galaxy. Earth, once dismissed as a primitive backwater, had just announced its arrival as a major power in the most dramatic fashion possible. The Priorians, and indeed the entire galactic community, would never underestimate humanity again. The battle was over, but the work had just begun. As the Prion ships drifted through space, their hulls shattered and their crews in disarray, Admiral Graves turned to Robert Reyes. "Captain, we need to get those survivors off those ships. They may have been our enemies, but we're not going to let them die out here." Reyes nodded. "Aye, sir. I'll coordinate with the Titan fleet to launch rescue shuttles. We'll bring them aboard our ships, provide medical care for the wounded, and ensure they're treated with respect." The Admiral clasped Reyes on the shoulder. "You're a good man, Robert. This is how we show the galaxy what humanity stands for." As the rescue operation swung into action, news of the battle spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Galactic News Network broadcast the story on every inhabited world, and the images of the mighty Titan fleet decimating the Priorians sent shockwaves through the alien races. The aftermath. On the planet Zyria, Ambassador Trellis of the Zyrian Confederation watched the broadcast with a mix of awe and trepidation. He turned to his aide, his brow furrowed. "Get me a line to Earth immediately. We need to establish formal diplomatic relations with the humans. A race with that kind of power could be a valuable ally or a formidable enemy." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as the alien races scrambled to reassess their views on humanity. Some, like the Xerians, sought to forge alliances. Others, like the ruthless Kagan Empire, began to plot and scheme, seeing Earth as a threat to their own ambitions. Back on Earth, Robert Reyes found himself hailed as a hero. In a ceremony attended by Earth's leaders and broadcast across the planet, Admiral Graves pinned a medal on Reyes's chest and announced his promotion to captain. Robert Reyes, for your bravery, skill, and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds, I hereby promote you to the rank of captain and place you in command of the UES Dauntless, our newest and most advanced deep space exploration vessel. As the crowd cheered, Reyes felt a sense of pride and purpose well up inside him. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, one in which they would take their rightful place among the stars. Preparing for the future. In the days that followed, Admiral Graves worked tirelessly with Earth's political leaders to chart a course for the future. They established a new department, the Earth Galactic Affairs Council, tasked with managing humanity's relationships with alien races and representing Earth's interests on the galactic stage. Meanwhile, in a secure holding facility on Earth, Korvac sat in his cell, his mind reeling from the events of the past few days. He had expected the humans to be ruthless, to torture him for information, and make him pay for his actions. Instead, they had treated him with a level of compassion and respect that he had never experienced before. As he interacted with his human captors, Korvac began to see them in a new light. He saw their ingenuity, their determination, and their unwavering commitment to their ideals. Slowly but surely, his perceptions began to shift. One day, when a human intelligence officer came to question him, Korvac surprised both of them by offering to cooperate. He shared information about the Prion Empire's military capabilities, their political structure, and their plans for galactic domination. He also warned of other threats, races that the humans had not yet encountered, but who posed a danger to Earth's interests. The Dauntless set sail. As Earth's influence continued to grow and its technology advanced at a breathtaking pace, Captain Robert Reyes and the crew of the Dauntless prepared for their first mission. They would be venturing into uncharted space, seeking out new allies and potential threats, and blazing a trail for humanity's future. Standing on the bridge of his new ship, Reyes looked out at the stars and felt a sense of destiny calling to him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that humanity would face them head-on, united and stronger than ever before. The Dauntless glided through the inky void, its hull illuminated by the distant stars. Captain Robert Reyes stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the viewscreen. Uncharted space stretched out before them, a vast expanse of unknowns. The crew worked at their stations, monitoring sensors and analyzing data. "Captain, I'm picking up an unusual energy signature," the science officer said. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Reyes turned. "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered, and an image appeared. A massive structure hung in space, its surface covered in intricate patterns and glowing with an eerie light. "What the hell is that?" Reyes asked. "Unknown, sir," the officer replied. "But it's emitting some kind of subspace signal. It's trying to communicate with us." Reyes felt a chill run down his spine. He had a feeling they were about to make first contact with something ancient and powerful. The progenitor's offer. As the Dauntless approached the structure, a hologram shimmered to life on the bridge. It coalesced into the form of a tall, slender being with luminous eyes and skin that seemed to shift and change like liquid metal. "Greetings, humans," the being said, its voice resonating through the air. "We are the progenitors. We have watched your species with great interest." Reyes stepped forward. "I'm Captain Robert Reyes of the UES Dauntless. What do you want with us?" The progenitor tilted its head. "We wish to offer you a gift. Our technology, our knowledge, all of it could be yours. You have shown great potential, and we believe that with our guidance, you could become one of the most powerful races in the galaxy." Reyes frowned. Something about this felt off. And what would you want in return? The progenitor's eyes glinted. Simply that you sever your ties with the galactic community and submit to our guidance. We would become your mentors, your protectors. You would be our loyal servants. Reyes's jaw clenched. I don't think so. We didn't fight our way to the stars just to become someone else's pawns. The progenitor's expression hardened. You would be wise to accept our offer, human. The alternative is far less pleasant. With that, the hologram vanished, leaving the stunned silence in its wake. Get me a line to Earth, Reyes ordered. We need to warn them about this. Earth's decision. As the Dauntless sped back towards human space, Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stumbled into something far bigger than they had ever imagined. Back on Earth, the news of the progenitor's offer sent shockwaves through the government. Emergency meetings were called, and heated debates erupted in the halls of power. Admiral Graves slammed his fist on the table. We can't trust these progenitors. This is a trap, plain and simple. But their technology could solve so many of our problems, one politician argued. We'd be fools to turn it down. As the arguments raged on, Reyes dug deeper into the progenitor's history. What he found chilled him to the bone. Every race that had ever accepted the progenitor's gift had ended up as little more than slaves, their cultures erased and their people broken. And then came the final piece of the puzzle. Korvac, the Prion commander they had captured, had escaped from his cell. As Reyes reviewed the security footage, he saw Korvac's eyes flash with the same eerie light as the progenitor hologram. Reyes's heart sank. Korvac had been a progenitor agent all along, manipulating them, pushing them towards this moment. In a final, desperate plea, Reyes addressed the Earth Galactic Affairs Council. He laid out the evidence, the truth about the progenitors and their intentions, and in the end, he made his stance clear. We cannot accept this offer, Reyes said, his voice ringing with conviction. To do so would be to lose everything that makes us human. Our free will, our right to choose our own path. We must stand together and face whatever challenges lie ahead, but we must do so as free people, not as slaves to some ancient race with their own agenda. In the end, the council voted to reject the progenitor's offer. There was no going back now. Earth had made an enemy of the most powerful race in the galaxy. As Reyes stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, staring out at the stars, he knew that dark times lay ahead. But he also knew that humanity would face them head-on, united and unbowed. They had come too far to turn back now. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The fight for humanity's freedom and survival had only just begun. The battle for humanity's future. As the Dauntless continued its journey through uncharted space, the crew remained vigilant, knowing that the progenitors could strike at any moment. Captain Reyes and his officers spent long hours strategizing and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Graves and the Earth Galactic Affairs Council worked tirelessly to strengthen alliances with other races. They shared the truth about the progenitors and their insidious plans, rallying the galactic community to stand against this common threat. Many races, having suffered under the progenitor's influence, were eager to join the cause. The combined fleet of Earth and its allies, now known as the Galactic Coalition, began amassing near the Sol system. The fleet included ships from the Zirians, the Vortons, the Uller, and many other races who had pledged their support. This unprecedented alliance was humanity's best hope for survival. As the days turned into weeks, the tension grew. The Galactic Coalition fleet drilled tirelessly, preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of countless worlds. The crew of the Dauntless, ever alert, continued to scan for any sign of the progenitors.